On today's show, the Ottawa Senators heading into the Olympic break on a winning note after beating Philadelphia.
We take a look how the Sens winning 5 of their last 6 games affects the wildcard race, and then we turn our attention to Team Canada.
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators. I'm Ross Levitan alongside Brandon Piller. Today is Friday, February 6th. And Pillsy, what a send-off to the Olympic Winter Games. U.S. Olympian Jake Sanderson to U.S. Olympian Brady Tkachuk to German Olympian Tim Stützle, around Canadian Olympian Travis Sanheim, past Czech Olympian Dan Vladar, and the Senators win 2-1.
Yeah, that's true. That's a lot of Olympians involved in that play. I didn't fully register all that, but the one that mattered most was Tim Stützle. I mean, you guys got to cover it in the postcast, but looking back on that play, I've watched that play so many different times from all the angles because all the angles are important, Ross. There's a 2-on-1 for the Flyers, and Tim Stützle is hustling back. He almost makes it back in time. Konechny misses the shot. Sanderson slides it up to Brady. And then Timmy's like, I got to pivot around and we got to get going. We got a 2-on-1 coming back our way here. Brady is out of gas. And he's like, Timmy, I can't. You just take this one. And somehow Timmy still has speed, still has energy to swoop up that puck, go 1-on-1 with Sanheim and just whoop right around him. And then pull a forehand, backhand move and tuck it around Vladar, manages to not crash into the net and hits the boards and just like, yep, that's how we do it. Game over. Get me on a flight to Italy. I'm heading to the Olympics now. Just absolutely incredible. He is the superstar. And there's a reason why Martian's saying is give it to the German, because that's all Brady Tkachuk did there. He really could have brought that in and made it a 2-on-1, but he was gassed and he's like, nah, I think Timmy can handle this. And handle it, Timmy did.
5-game goal streak, 7-game point streak for the German heading into the break. And our good friend, Laleem's Martian, is asking this morning on social media, can Tim Stützle set a career high in points this season? He needs 30 points in his last 25 games to reach 91 points. I say he does it, man, especially the way he's been going right now. We know that he loves the big games. He was great down the stretch last year when Ottawa had that push and made the playoffs. There's no reason why he can't. And my 40-goal hot take is looking absolutely money right now. He's got 28 tucks already.
Yeah, I think 40 goals and over 90 points is very possible at this point. And it's mostly because of how hot he's been. Now, let's hope the Olympics doesn't cool him down. Let's hope he comes back even hotter after maybe Germany surprises some people at the Olympics. Don't overlook that team. They have some all-star players scattered throughout their lineup. But I really want Tim Stützle to do it. We need someone back in the 40-goal column. We need someone approaching 100 points again. I know Timmy had 90 the one year and 39 goals, so he was close to that. But the way he's playing and the way he's been consistently lighting it up, he's going to do it.
I'll take it a step, a point further. If Tim Stützle reaches 92 points, he will tie Jason Spetz's 07-08 season for the 5th most single season points in Senators history. That's the type of company that Tim Stützle is keeping. His goal last night, as I mentioned on the postcast, also passes Sean McEachran, so he's now alone in 9th in Senators history. Just an absolutely phenomenal run for Tim Stützle last night. One thing we didn't touch on much last night is the goaltending situation. Linus Ullmark takes part in the morning skate. Looks like he's slated to start. Sounds like he's slated to start. Travis Green confirming it after the skate. And then 2 hours before puck drop, the news comes out. Flu-like symptoms, cannot go. James Reimer will start. Hunter Shepard gets called up. He doesn't even make it to the rink in time for warm-up, which leads us to believe that they only found out a couple of hours before the game. The Belleville Sens were in Syracuse, New York. I'm not a math guy. I don't feel like it's the furthest way to go from Syracuse to Philadelphia, We'll have to get Google Maps on that one. But the fact that this was as chaotic from the outside as it seems, and the team didn't know until they got to the rink. Brady said after the game, I'm not even sure what happened. I just got to the rink and he wasn't there. So we're going to go with James Reimer, and that left pad save he made on Sean Couturier in the second period was the timely save that the Ottawa Senators needed. There was one in the third period too, where I forget who it was, but they came over and just ripped a low wrist shot glove side, and he didn't even go down. Old beer league style. I'm just going to catch it and go. I thought that under the circumstances, it was a very solid performance from James Reimer.
Yep, you got to give Reimer a lot of credit, and you got to give the Sens a lot of credit for holding the Philadelphia Flyers to only 16 shots. Very impressive there. And Ross, LOSP Google Maps department is on the case. The drive from Syracuse, New York to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 4 hours and 10 minutes if you pay the tolls, which I assume at that point the Ottawa Senators would be comfortable with. Hunter Shepard being like, hey, you guys owe me $6.50 in tolls because I tried to shave off half an hour getting to the game. I don't know if that's how much tolls cost. But either way, great job by James Reimer. He did what he had to do to keep this team in it. And obviously it's frustrating when you have a 1-0 lead, you've been dominating all game, and then the Flyers find a way to score with like a minute 20 left. But when you look at the angle where it shows how much traffic was in front of Reimer, he had no chance on that one. So sure, you can be like, oh man, they're so close to getting that regulation win. You got to get the save there. But if you can't see it, it's hard to stop it there. And that's a nice job by Drysdale to get that through all that traffic. But I'm always confident, Ross, in the Ottawa Senators in overtime. I feel like when you've got guys like Timmy, Brady, Jake Sanderson, those are the three guys on the ice when the goal is scored, you can beat pretty much most trios in the NHL at 3-on-3. So as long as they made it to overtime, I was confident. I saw, I saw Martian say as soon as the Flyers scored that goal, he felt like they were going to score another one. And I felt the same way. I was like, this is going to be another ultimate collapse going into the break. But once it got past regulation, I was already counting those 2 points.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because the Senators have not been good in 3-on-3. But frankly, you need one save in 3-on-3. But it turned out last night that Travis Konechny just missed the net. So they got a little bit of a fortunate bounce there.
Big time fortunate bounce. Because I don't know about you, Ross, when Konechny was coming down, I was like, if he gets all of this, he could probably beat Reimer because Konechny's having a good year and he had a wide open lane and he had all the time in the world to load up that wrister.
Yeah, and instead you miss at one end and it's very likely the other team's going to go the other way. It was very reminiscent of the DeBrincat goal where Ottawa missed the net wide. Yep. He comes, takes it, and scores, but this time it goes the other way, and Tim Stützle wins the game. The Ottawa Senators are now 8-3-2 since January 12th. So going back to the game that they won against Vancouver, 2-1, they've had 4 different goalies win a game for them over that stretch. Levy got the win against Vancouver, Mads against Vegas, Ullmark against New Jersey and Pittsburgh, and James Reimer with a win there last night for the Ottawa Senators. They're finding ways to win. They have caught up to an extent to a number of teams, and they've gotten a little bit closer. The Ottawa Senators are now 6 points back of the Boston Bruins for the final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. We'll discuss how this recent stretch has affected the standings next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. Super Bowl 60 is on Sunday, and FanDuel's making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to final whistle. Head to FanDuel right now. Super Bowl odds are up. The Seattle Seahawks, the favorites at minus 235 for the money line. Pats at plus 194. The spread minus 4.5 for the Seahawks, and the over set at 45.5. And if you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. So make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Thank you for making Locked On Senators your first listen each and every day and helping the Locked On Podcast Network become the #1 sports podcast network. You already make us your team every day. Let's go up a notch with the Everydayer Club. Shout out to all of our Everydayers. You get access to our members-only Discord, as well as ad-free content wherever you get your podcasts. You can get through it on Supercast. The link is in our bio below. It'll go right to your iPhone, right to your Spotify. It'll be there for you ad-free. All right, Pilsy. The Senators might have a secret weapon on their team, and his name is Nick Cousins. He's been voted the worst chirper in the league, the most punchable face. But when he scores a goal for the Ottawa Senators this season, they are 7-1-0.
Wow. Okay. That's even better than the Curtis McDermott stats. That's impressive. And you got to give it to Nick Cousins. Adaptable player. Like, there was a time, Ross, at the start of this season, both you and I were like, I think the Nick Cousins experiment is over. Maybe he needs to spend some time in Belleville. He was taking undisciplined penalties. He wasn't playing very good. And then he turns it around. He finds his way onto a third line that we thought, I believe I said, Travis, get out the chisel, etch it in stone, Greg, Pinto, Amadio, or even Amadio, Pinto, Giroux. Any one of those combos, you're not going to change that. Cousins found his way on that line, and he's been successful. And scoring that goal was absolutely huge. It was 0-0, tied up game for quite a while, even though the Sens were dominating. But he's greasy. He gets in there, and he buries that rebound.
Yeah, he's been great. He now has more points than he had last season with Ottawa by 1, but he has played 6 more games, obviously missed 32 games last season, a number of it after the knee injury that cost him the second half of the season. But great to see for Nick Cousins, and I just find him to be such a smart hockey player. The more you watch him, I think the more you can appreciate how he just gets in the right spots, and he was being his funny self yesterday as well, fake two-handing Matvei Michkov, and I think he scared the kid off the puck there, faked a hit, and the guy braced for it, and he just went and stripped the puck off his stick. He is a very entertaining player to watch, and credit to him, man. He's got 7 points in his last 19 games. So he's able to produce a little bit offensively. In November and December, he averaged less than 10 minutes per game. That number went up to 11 minutes per game in January, and in the 3 games he's played so far in Feb, he's up to 15.50 in time on ice. Obviously, Travis Green relies on Shane Pinto as the matchup, so if you're on his line, you're going to play more. I was seeing some people note that Nick Cousins last night played, I think, a minute more than Brady Tkachuk, but whoever plays with Shane Pinto is going to play more minutes. Look at Michael Amadio, the same. Michael Amadio, by the way, once every couple of games, I have to do a double check to make sure it's not Mark Stone. Now, Mark Stone obviously has so much more offensive talent than Michael Amadio. I think Mikey would be the first one to tell you that. But the way this guy just sneaks up on guys and strips them of the puck.
On Couturier.
He had a clean takeaway on Couturier. It was unbelievable.
And he wasn't ready for that at all, Couturier. He kind of looked back, was like, what the heck? Like, how did that one happen? So that's a good one. Ross, Nick Cousins is an unrestricted free agent. He only signed a 1-year deal. He already said, look, I don't want to move. I want to stay here in Ottawa. Obviously, he's happy. I say every year, Steve Stais and him just have a handshake agreement. I'll give you a $25,000 raise every year, because the first deal they signed, $800. Next deal, $825. So just verbal handshake agreement, Steve Stais to Nick Cousins and his agent, be like, hey, we'll give you $850 this year, $875 next year, $900 next year. Just keep giving them an extra 25, or I guess, no, is that 25 each year? Yeah.
Not a math guy.
My math is right there. So I think that's the way to go here, because he's got a role on this team for sure.
And you're probably really excited to know that he's 2 games away from reaching the 700 game milestone in his career.
Let's go.
Yep.
I was waiting for game 700 for Nick Cousins.
Yep, as
I
we
will
all
be
were.
celebrating that one.
Hey, for a 3rd round pick in 2011, it's a nice little career that Nick Cousins has got for himself, especially for a guy that when he came in was really, I think, struggling would be a fair way to put it, in Philadelphia. Goes to Arizona. Some careers have died in Arizona. Not him. Gets moved. Montreal, Vegas, Nashville, Florida, wins a cup, then comes to Ottawa. And now it really does seem like he fits in super well in terms of the makeup, and just a guy that keeps it light and that everybody loves having around the room.
But don't forget, Ross, in his last year in junior, Nick Cousins put up 103 points in 64 games in Sault Ste. Marie. Like, it's not like he just like always was a greasy rat type player. Now, maybe he still had a bit of that greasiness in junior, but putting up over 100 points in 64 games is still very impressive.
It's super impressive. Okay, let's look at the Ottawa Senators spot in the standings right now. And we'll start with the graphic that we pulled up on January 27th. So this was the last stretch. Everybody had about 5 games left. So we said, let's see what the race looks like to the Olympic break. Tampa Bay, 4-0. Best team, second best team, kind of, but they won all their games. So you can't get any better than that. They go 4-0. They're the class of the Eastern Conference with 78 points. Everybody else in this graphic, I think some have obviously better chances than others, but I think everybody is still competing for playoffs beyond Tampa Bay, locked in number 1. You got to give credit to Rick Bowness and what he's done with the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Oh my God. It's
1-0.
It's amazing. They're on a 7-game winning streak, and they're not just squeaking out wins, like they're shutting teams out, and they're playing a dominant style of hockey. So they're certainly a threat. I kind of hope they get into the Metro, Ross. They bump one of those teams there.
Yeah, I think they deserve it. And they're 1 loss, by the way, coming to the Ottawa Senators.
Mm-hmm.
So you like to see that. But credit to the Columbus Blue Jackets. They are very impressive.
Yeah, and they deserve to be in the playoffs. The Montreal Canadiens are such party poopers, ruining their season of destiny, making the playoffs instead of them last season. So let's maybe we can make a swap there. Let's get Columbus in, Montreal out to make up for that.
Montreal, though, 4-0-1 in their 5 games heading into the break. So they're at 72 points, tied with Detroit. And the Red Wings are slumping. They have 1 win in 5 games. Yikes. Into the break. Now the Senators are still 9 points behind them. They have a game in hand, and the first game out of the Olympic break is against the Detroit Red Wings. You win that game in regulation, and we can start having some very interesting conversations. Detroit 1-3-1 leading into the Olympic break. Buffalo, they've cooled down based on what they were before. Still very good, though. They go 3-2-1. They've got 70 points into the break. Boston 2-0-2. They had some extra games, so they're back down to the same amount of games played as Ottawa and a few other teams, but they still find a way to get points there. So they're at 69 points. That is the team that is closest to Ottawa in the standings. The only other team I want to touch on here is the Florida Panthers. Talk about a fall to the bottom. They get Matthew Tkachuk back. You think that's going to spark them. Is there something in the water when a Tkachuk comes back in the lineup that the team struggles? Happened to Ottawa as well, but they're 1-5-0 in their final 6 games going into the Olympics. Their only win actually did Ottawa a favor. Now, it took a shootout to get there, but they were able to get a shootout win over Boston. Other than that, I mean, this is just L after L, and some heartbreaking ones at that. They gave up the game-winning goal in St. Louis with 9 seconds left. What a shame. What a shame.
Yeah, you hate to see back-to-back Stanley Cup champion teams struggle and continue to fall out of a playoff race. Real tough to watch.
So the standings at the Olympic break: Buffalo and Boston hold the wild card spots. Buffalo with 70 points, Boston with 69. Then it's Columbus, Washington tied with 65 points each, followed by Ottawa. Now, it is worth noting that Columbus has a game in hand on Ottawa, while the Sens have 2 games in hand on Washington. So there is something to be said about that. There's also something to be said, because this just shows the wild card race, that the third place in the Metropolitan Division is at 69 points. So would be tied with Boston. So a team like Columbus and Washington, all of a sudden we're going to have to start paying attention to the New York Islanders if they fall back. They have won 2 straight though, and are 6-4-0 in their last 10 games. So I think for Ottawa, it's a little bit different than we had anticipated doing, Pilsy, when we said that we were going to look at Atlantic Division standings, not the wild card standings this year. But frankly, it looks like it's going to be 5 teams from the Atlantic that are making the playoffs. So if you look at it from just the Atlantic Division, it still shows a similar picture. Ottawa tied with the Toronto Maple Leafs for 6th in the division. The Senators, though, with the edge in regulation, wins by 3. Both teams have the same amount of games played. The Leafs coming off 3 straight wins after felt like it was going to be full rebuild, full retool, and the fan base was pretty rattled after they had lost a number of games in a row. I think they had 1 win in 9 games before this, but Ottawa was able to catch them. And we know our good friend, Defense Minister Tyler on Twitter, has been doing a great job of updating just how much Ottawa has gained in the standings over the last number of days since the win over Vancouver. The Senators have gained only 1 point on the Boston Bruins. How wild is that, Pilsy? That's how good Boston's continued to be over the last little while. The Senators have gained 4 points on the Habs and the Islanders. They've gained 5 points on the Capitals, 6 points on the Detroit Red Wings, 8 points on the Leafs, Panthers, and Devils, 9 points on the Flyers. And I appreciate Tyler for the pettiness here. I don't think we have to worry about the Rangers, but they've gained 14 points on the Rangers in the last 25 days.
Yeah, I've got the Rangers, Devils, and Flyers as out of it, in my opinion. I don't think they've got the roster, and it's their time to make a push.
I would agree with that. Part of me wants to throw the Panthers in there.
No,
I guess you can never
too
count
early.
them out, eh?
Yeah, and if Barkov comes back, that's huge.
But I don't think he can come back. They would have to do a lot of roster manipulation to get him back to be under the cap. Like Matthew Stanislavich would have to go down to the minors. I think our good friend over at Locked On Panthers, Armando Velaz, was mentioning that there's a lot of hoops that would have to be flown into. But I mean, he hasn't even started practicing really with the team yet. So we'll see how it all comes out. Okay, on the other side, we are putting our Team Canada hats on. Oh, baby, the Olympics are here. We'll look at what we would do with the Senators roster next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. So spend more time interviewing candidates who actually check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on the Locked On Senators podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Do it the right way with Indeed.
All right, Pilsy. So the Ottawa Senators have won 5 of 6. We feel good about that. But you know what else felt pretty good, Pilsy?
Let's hear it.
Putting our lineup graph to include some of the best players in the world. We will be all over the Winter Olympic Games. First time in 12 years where it will include NHL players. In Olympics that have NHL players, Canada, the back-to-back reigning champs. This is going to be a really fun team. So we thought a good introduction to our Olympic coverage would be to give our projected lines ahead of what we know John Cooper will do when the team meets in Milan. They'll get a few practices in before the opening game, which takes place in less than a week. 10:40 a.m. Thursday, 12th of February, Canada versus Czechia.
And to be clear, this is how we would make our lines. This is not us predicting what John Cooper will do. It's we're just having a bit of fun, seeing what we like, what works. And Ross, we've done a lot of lineup projections in the past for the Ottawa Senators, Belleville Senators, even Nodak Sens. We've done some of that. But nothing is more thrilling than putting together a Team Canada lineup and being like, this is the team I get to cheer for. All good problems when you're trying to make a lineup work.
You could probably do 75 different combinations.
Yeah.
And nobody would have anything to throw a stick at and say, or a flag at and say, no, can't do that. Pillsy, let's start with yours.
All right. Well, I'm going to read it from left to right, Ross, as normal people do. Ali Dez, shout out Ali. He caught me reading center and then the wing. So I did have a slip up there. So I got to make sure I'm staying true to my principles here. So top line, Stone, McDavid, Marner. Do you want me to explain each line, or we'll do kind of a synopsis after?
Synopsis after.
Okay. Then we got McKinnon, Crosby, Reinhart, Hagel, Celebrini, Bennett, Marchand, Horvat, Wilson, and Suzuki, the extra. Taves, Makar, Morrissey, Doughty, Theodore, Parayko, with Sanheim as the extra. And I'm going Binnington, starting off, Thompson backing up, and Kemper, the scratch. And then the scratch on forward is Seth Jarvis, and the scratch on defense, Thomas Harley.
Yeah, I love this, and there really isn't too much, again, that you can really kind of get mad at, if you will. But the one thing I'll say here is that the Team Canada roster has a lot of righties up front. And I'm really curious to see how John Cooper negotiates with that. Like Mark Stone, righty. Nate McKinnon, righty. You've got Marner and Reinhart, both righties up there as well. They only have two legit left wingers, like guys that play left wing in the NHL on this team. That's Brandon Hagel and Brad Marchand, both guys who are much more suited to play a bottom six role on this team. So you're going to have a righty clump up top. Now, McDavid's a lefty, so you do have at least one left-handed shot on the top line. Crosby's a lefty, so down the middle, you got a couple lefties. I'm not going to give away all my lines. I want to talk about yours first, but I think it's pretty much locked in that McDavid and Crosby are your top two centers.
Although, Ross, all the projections I've seen have McKinnon as the center, not Crosby, but I couldn't find the video, but I found the quote of McKinnon saying, if Crosby and I are on a line, I'll play the wing. Was his exact quote was, I'll play the wing. So we've got McKinnon, both of us, spoiler alert, as the winger on that line with Crosby. I put Marner on that top line because I want to recreate the magic that was that Four Nations game-winning, tournament-winning goal where Marner assists on McDavid. And you get Stone and Marner as his wingers, like, obviously elite offensively, but defensively, that's going to be a really tough line to work with. McKinnon, Crosby, their pair. I just kind of had Reinhart there. And then I like Celebrini in between Hagel and Bennett. You get a little bit of feistiness in between or on the flanks of a young Macklin Celebrini. And then Marchand, Wilson, those two guys, in my opinion, you got to put them on a line together again, some feistiness. And if there's Habs fans watching, they're probably screaming, being like, how could you not have Suzuki as at least one of the top four centers? And my main reason, obviously, to troll the Habs. Second reason, Horvat is a much better face-off percentage guy than Suzuki. Now I was looking at this team, Ross. Apart from Crosby, McKinnon, and Horvat, almost everyone else is below 50% in the dot. So I want Horvat there taking those draws, and Suzuki can come in on the fly or when there's not faceoffs needed. Now, I mean, Suzuki, I think, is a 49.7, so it's not like he's terrible, but Horvat, I believe, is at like 56 or something. So we need that. And then Jarvis a scratch just because he's kind of the extra guy coming in here for a Braden Point injury. Taves McCarr, you got to have those two guys together. Morrissey, Doughty, that's a good yin and yang. Theodore, Parayko, I think is a good third pair. And then I did have Sanheim originally with Parayko because those two were the pair of the Four Nations face-off. But after seeing Timmy absolutely walk him like that, and you're going to a best-on-best tournament, yeah, Sanheim, you can swap in every once in a while when Cooper sees fit. And then Harley was the scratch there. Now, as far as the goalies go, in my opinion, Ross, it's Binnington's net until he loses it. I know of the three, he's having the worst season, and it's not even close, but he's a big game player. He rises up for these moments, and I think he's earned the right to at least have the benefit of the doubt to start the tournament as Canada's number one.
I'm glad you went with Binnington. I feel like someone needed to make that argument, but I just need to go with who's hot right now and who has experience this season and in the past playing for teams that don't give up a lot of shots. Because as we know with Ottawa, it takes a different type of goalie to be able to lock in when they're only facing 15 to 20 shots a game. And I feel like especially in the preliminary round, that's going to be the case, which is why my starting goalie is Darcy Kemper. As we get to my projected lines here, or what I would do here on day one, and this is obviously all subject to change, but I think that you go with Darcy Kemper. He's having a great season with LA, and he's been a big game goalie. Stanley Cup champion with the Colorado Avalanche more recently than Binnington. I can hear the argument for Jordan Binnington for sure. You can't go wrong with any of the three. Logan Thompson's having a phenomenal year with the Washington Capitals. Frankly, 2 phenomenal years back-to-back now for him there, but I think I'm going with Darcy Kemper to start this tournament. And as we've seen in the past, that's always subject to change. Just
scratching Binnington though, Ross.
Yeah, that one's just kind of a up in the air decision. I wouldn't mind if he's the backup either, but really it's going to be a game by game situation with all three of the goalies, and it will be one of the most talked about areas of this team. The back end, we have a couple of changes actually. Top pair stays the same, Devon Taves and Cale Makar. I'm going with Josh Morrissey with Shea Theodore. I think Shea Theodore is a good candidate to play his offside. He's really good and really smart in the defensive zone, and he rushes the puck well. I think that he has played a little bit of right defense as well, so I don't think you're throwing him into a situation that he's uncomfortable with. And then it allows your lesser player in Travis Sanheim to play his proper side, and that can be your quote-unquote shutdown pair that is also a little lower down. But I think that they would do well with third-line matchups no matter who they're playing. They're two big boys that can skate extremely well. So I like Sanheim with Parayko there as my third pair. I'm dressing Doughty in every game. I think that what he's going to bring on the bench, what he's going to bring experience-wise cannot be overlooked. He's already a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. He's won everything you can in the game of hockey. So Doughty would be my spot player here and there within a game. But I think at his age, it's probably right that he starts on the outside looking in. But hell, what was it? 16 years ago, he was the guy that started on the outside as a 21-year-old. And by the end of the tournament, he was playing top 4 minutes. Like, you couldn't get this guy off the ice.
Now,
times have changed.
Let's make sure his alarm clock's working, Ross. Famously, he slept in, and did he miss the bus or almost miss it?
No, he missed the bus. He walked through general admission to get into Rogers Arena for the gold medal game against Vancouver.
Yeah, so let's make sure we got a couple alarms on Doughty's bedside table.
So I mentioned that there's a lot of righties on this team, and I want a lefty playing with McDavid on his left wing. So I'm giving Macklin Celebrini that spot. And you might call me crazy. He's 19 years old. He is the youngest player at these Olympics. It's incredible that Macklin or I should say for Team Canada, because I think that like Latvia's got a kid who's in the draft this year, who like Albert Smits, I want to say his name is. We'll get to our draft coverage later on in the season, but Macklin Celebrini is my left winger for McDavid to start this tournament. I think that the season he's had, the way that he can play, the way he can skate and keep up with McDavid, I think that would be a really good combo. And then you've got Mitch Marner as the playmaker on that line that can create space, time, and opportunity for McDavid and Celebrini to work magic there. So I'm on McDavid centering Celebrini and Mitch Marner as my top line. And I love that pair of Crosby and McKinnon. They were great at the Four Nations together. You know how much it means to both of those guys getting to play on the same team, the same line. Yeah, it just makes so much sense. Just makes so much sense. I think that would be the combo duo that is locked in the most on this roster. Crosby with
other
McKinnon.
than Taves Makar.
Sure, yeah. And nobody's updated Taves. Like he said after the roster was named, my wife's expecting, and if she hasn't given birth, I'm not going. I mean, I didn't see a birth announcement. If not, congratulations to the Taves family. But like, I mean, the flights are leaving today. Like, is he going? I'd imagine so.
I'm expecting him to go, Ross. I think it would have been big news if he would have announced that he's not.
Big time. He's such a stud, such an amazing player, and really kind of compliments Makar well. So I like that. It's too bad that Alex Pietrangelo had that injury because, man, he would be a real key piece of this team this season. So unfortunate there. I would also like to just put out there that Matthew Schaefer should be on this team. Like looking at doing this exercise and everything, like you cannot tell me that Travis Sanheim is a better defenseman than Matthew Schaefer.
Or Harley. No offense.
Yeah.
And Harley's born in New York. We looked at the rosters, Ross, to get everyone's number correct, and seeing all the birthplaces, the Cole Harbors, the Manitobas, the BCs, the Ontarios, and then seeing New York as one of the birthplaces for a Team Canada player. Sorry. Doesn't sit right with me.
No, it doesn't. It's Team USA that needs to have all the half Canadian kids to be as good as they are. The Kachucks, the Larkin, the Sandersons, the list goes on and on beyond that. So yeah, I mean, no disrespect to Thomas Harley. He's a perfectly fine player, but you cannot tell me that Matthew Schaefer shouldn't be on this team. And then you go above that. I'm a big fan of the continuation between generations, and to get him learning from a Drew Doughty, that would be invaluable to me as a Hockey Canada organization, to have that next wave, because he's going to be in the 2030 Olympics. I don't see why you wouldn't bring him. And if you scratch him, whatever, but bring him, allow him to be there for the experience. So, so I got Mark Stone with Crosby and McKinnon. He'll do some of the dirty work there on that line. He's having a hell of a season, man. Like he missed a lot of time with injury, but when he's playing, like he's a top 6 player on this team. There's no question in my mind there. The only guy that bumps down that could absolutely be a top 6 player here, Sam Reinhart for me. I think this line would be so nasty. Nick Suzuki centering Brandon Hagel and Sam Reinhart. As long as Hagel and Reinhart can be in a room together with that rivalry there with Tampa and Florida. But I'm looking at that duo or that trio and saying that's like our Energizer bunny line. Like they're not going to physically dominate you, but they're all such great skaters and they bring a little something different. Like that's a tough line to defend against in any league, let alone one where you've got 2 lines that are coming over the boards next that you simply need your best players to match up against. So that frees this lineup to be a very, very impressive secondary scoring line as a third line there. And then my checking line, I mean, as long as they can stay out of the box, a line of Sam Bennett, Brad Marchand, and Tom Wilson. You kidding me? Imagine the intimidation that would put into Team France, Team Czechia. Like these are the teams that Canada's playing right off the bat. Switzerland on day 2. Like nobody's going to want to go out there against those 3.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about that, Ross, is the face-offs concern me with that line.
I actually don't mind if they don't really touch the puck a whole lot. Like I just want them creating havoc out there and being hard on pucks. So if they're chasing, that actually might be the best way forward for them, because them chasing usually results in bodies flying all over the ice.
Yeah, that's fair. But we've seen how big faceoffs can be in big moments and in big games. And obviously that's your 4th line, so we're nitpicking here, but that's why Bo Horvat really got that edge for me.
Well, Horvat's in my lineup. He's my 13th forward, and we probably should have said this earlier, but double IHF rules, you can dress 13 forwards and 7 defensemen. Well, 20 skaters. Frankly, you can dress 14 forwards and 6 defensemen if you want, but most teams do 1 extra defenseman, 1 extra forward. And Horvat, for me, would definitely get some shifts with that line, probably offensive zone shifts. You'd start Horvat, defensive zone shifts, you probably start Bennett. But holy smokes, Billsy, this is going to be a fun team to watch.
Yeah, I'm so excited. It's been too long since NHL players were at Olympics. Like Ross, obviously we're older in our early 30s, not that old, but we got to grow up with that. Like when was the first one? 98?
98. I would have been 6 years old.
Yeah. So like our first memories and then our core memories are NHL players at Olympics. There's a generation that has not gotten to see that. Sure, you get the 4 Nations face off. That's fun, but it's not the same.
No.
So for now, and think of the players. McDavid never being on an Olympic team is insane that hasn't happened. I mean, Brad Marchand, the guy's in his late 30s on the end of his career. Well, I guess he's got 5 years left on his deal, so I shouldn't say that, but never going to the Olympics. Like, it's just so wild that there was that big gap. So I'm glad they were able to get it figured out here, but I hope things go well, because the debacle leading up to this with the rink dimensions and the rink maybe not getting done, and you hear all the rumors that this is maybe not the most prepared Olympics. We'll say that. Hopefully things go smoothly so that this doesn't cause an issue for NHL players to remain at the Olympics.
Yes. No. I don't think it will. And for Brad Marchand, it's worth noting this is a 2-time World Junior gold medalist, a World Cup gold medalist, a World Championship gold medalist, a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. He won the Four Nations face-off and won in the Quebec Major Junior League.
Wow.
He can fulfill the entire trophy case with a gold medal.
Yeah, he's got one spot left in that trophy case. That's incredible.
Yeah, so we'll see. Guys who have gold medals on this team: Sidney Crosby with 2, Drew Doughty with 2. That's it.
That's it. Yeah, definitely. Because the other guys aren't old enough to have been there.
So it's going to be such a blast to watch this team. It all starts next Thursday, and no spoilers, but Jack and I are going to live stream the first game. So we'll see how it goes after that. But we're putting our Team Canada boots on. Maybe we'll do shots of maple syrup after every goal. We'll have some fun there. We'll have some fun there for sure. Cannot wait for the Olympic Games. All the players are heading over today. I would imagine either tomorrow or the next day will be the first skate. And we'll be all over the lines in that coming next week. We also have some interviews for you next week. We're working on times with Bruce Garriock, Graham Creech, and our guy, Stephen Halliday. So stay tuned for all that. Pilsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
You're sure we contacted Bruce Garriock, not Bruce Boudreau, right?
I'll take either. That was one of the funniest tweets I've ever seen. If you haven't, at Sun Garriock, these guys are separated at birth.
It's both of them being Bruce. It was crazy. I do have a final thought, Ross, and this is unfortunate. Oh my God, prayers up for Logan Hensler.
Yeah.
Sens prospect posted that video. Oh man, legs are not supposed to bend like that.
No.
So he's going to be out, quote, at least a few weeks. Brandon Piller, not a doctor, but I'm looking at over a month at minimum.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fact it's even being spoken about in weeks, I think, is the best thing you can take out of that, because did not look good.
Yeah. So really hoping he can recover, especially Ross, a defenseman that is one of his main attributes is his skating. Any leg injury like that at a young age is unfortunate. So we're all hoping the best for Logan Hensler.
Yeah, the Sens first round pick, 23rd overall in this past draft. He had gone 3 games at a point, but got injured very early in their last game there against Minnesota on January 31st. So almost been a week since the injury occurred. And we'll keep track of how this develops going forward for a very key part of the organization in terms of depth, in terms of prospects, and everything to do with the future of the team. All right, that's it for us today. Thanks so much for liking, watching, listening, and engaging with the show. If you want more, go watch the postcast. It's available wherever you get your podcast. We dive in way deeper into what we saw in last night's Senators win. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. Have a great weekend, everyone. First weekend in a while that we haven't had a postcast, but we'll be back on Monday, beginning a stretch of Olympic coverage, and we'll get into our classic mid-season segments like our top 10 Sens prospects, and we'll look at our organizational value rankings from the summer and see who we were wrong about, who we were absolutely off on there. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and this has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.